Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Jyotsana Pahuja, Assistant Professor, School of Management Studies and Commerce, RIMT University, Mandi, Gobindgarh. Today we'll be discussing the topic business environment, and we'll be studying the PESTLE analysis, which is one of the most important aspects when we have to start up a new business or we have to make any kind of changes in the existing business. Well, starting from an introduction, the business environment is the collection of factors like employees, clients, supply and demand, management itself, suppliers, investors, and a lot more. So business environment affects the working of a company. Business environment comprises of internal, external, and macro factors that influence the business. Now, before we start the PESTLE analysis, it's quite important to understand the internal, external, and macro factors individually. So what is the internal environment basically? Internal environment refers to something which is happening within the company, like employees, financial capabilities of the company, operational capabilities, its culture, the structure of the company, and so on. So when we have to study the internal environment, basically we studied or we analyze it by studying the SWOT analysis. SWOT is an acronym that stands for strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats to any business. Next is the internal environment. It refers to anything which is outside the organizations, like competitors, strategic partners, suppliers, distributor, etc. And we study PORTER'S FIVE FORCE MODEL to study this kind of environment. Generally, external environment and macro environment are being confused with each other, but it's different. Internal and external environment, it is a two-way communication and they affect each other to a great extent. But macro environment is something which is basically used for every kind of industry. When I talk about PESTLE analysis, now what do the PESTLE analysis is? When we have to start a new business, when we have to enter a new market or a foreign market, when we are planning a diversification, etc., we do the PESTLE analysis, and therefore it is called as macro environment. Now, what is PESTLE analysis? We generally, it was formerly known as a PEST analysis also. It's a framework or a tool that is used to analyze and monitor the macro environmental factors that may have a huge impact on an organization's performance. And this tool is especially useful when starting up a new business or when we are entering a foreign market. PESTLE analysis is an acronym that stands for political, economic, social, technological, environmental, and the legal factors. Starting off with the political factors. Now, it is all about how and to what extent or a degree does government intervene in the economy or certain industry. In other words, how government influence one's business. It includes the government policies, the political stability or instability, foreign trade policies, tax policies, labor laws, environmental factors or environmental laws or trade laws and so on. So a company decides to move its operations to different states or different countries after a new government is elected on a campaign to implement policies that would adversely affect the company's core operations, for example. Now, we could analyze, we can relate this with an example of the Tata Nano cars. Because of controversial issues created by the state government of West Bengal, citing the 1894 Land Acquisition Act rules to conduct the eminent domain takeover of 994 acres of farmland on which Tata Motors, that is the Nano car, was supposed to build its factory. Now, the project was opposed by activists and the opposition parties in Bengal, upon which the whole project was shifted in state of Gujarat. So this is the political factor. This is certain kind of policies that have affected the operations. Now, for example, if a business is supposed to operate in a foreign market, it is quite important to see that what kind of bilateral relations do we have with that particular country where exactly our business want to operate, or they want to shift, or they want to get globalized. So these are the political factors, the government policies, the bilateral relations that affect any kind of business. Then we talk about the economic factor. Now, it has a significant impact on working of an organization and how profitable the business is. Like for example, economic growth, the interest and exchange rates of the currency, the inflation rate, the disposable income of a consumer, or the unemployment rate. These all are the economic factors that affect to great extent. Now, these factors may have a direct or indirect long-term impact on a company, since it affects the purchasing power of the consumers, that is how well the consumer are purchasing certain kind of products, and could possibly change the demand supply model of the economy. Consequently, it also affects the company's pricing strategy, that is how the companies price their product and services. For example, if the people or the masses of certain country do not have that kind of purchasing power, they are not able to purchase certain kind of product on a higher price. So accordingly, the companies would decide their pricing policies so that maximum customers can buy their products. So elements of economic factors now. Basically, economic factors have three different elements. Firstly is the economic conditions. Economic condition is, it is the improvement in the economic conditions, help in improving the style and the quality of life on leads, consumption level, purchasing power parity, or that is the positive effect. That means if we have a good economic conditions, we will have a more purchasing power of people, they will have a better lifestyle. So in case of depression now, that is a negative effect. In case of depression, the economic conditions will be negatively affected on the business. Another aspect or another element is the economic policies. These are the policies that are framed by the government, and they help in establishing the relationship between business and the government, like monetary policies, the foreign investment policies, industrial policies, and so on. Another aspect is the prevailing economic system, that is capitalism, socialism, and the mixed economy. Now we know that capitalism, in which it is laissez-faire and everybody has a right to start any kind of business and so on. And in case of socialism, of course, there is certain kind of government intervention, but the holding is not completely private. So in similar with the mixed economy. Then I talk about the social or socio-cultural environment. These are related to cultural and demographic trends of the society within which an organization operates, and these factors are essential for the marketers when targeting certain customers. Social norms and pressures are the key determining consumer behavior. Certain factors that can be considered could be the cultural aspect or perception, what the culture is perceiving, what kind of perception do the people in that particular culture have. Like consumption of hard drinks and certain non-vegetarian foods are not accepted in certain cultures. So every business has to see that what kind of product or services they are basically ready to serve to people. So that means they have to understand the culture of that particular environment. Another thing is the health consciousness. Like for example, these days in America, Americans used to smoke a lot, and these days Americans, they have decreased smoking. That means there is decrease in population who smoke. So this is that means the people of America have become more health conscious. So every business has to see these kind of aspects as well. Another is the population growth rate, age distribution, career attitude, and so on. Like for example, if I take an example of a career attitude, the percentage of the Indian population that live in a joint family setup has decreased to a great extent due to change in society's perception, job displacement, etc. So families have become more nuclear rather than living in a joint family, and so the perception and the behavior, the consumption pattern have changed a lot. Next, we talk about the technological factors. Now, technological factors are basically linked to the innovation in industry as well as innovation in overall economy. Not being up to date to the latest trend of a particular industry can lead to negative effect on to operations. Technological factors include research and development activities in any organization, automation, technological incentives, the rate of change in technology which may help marketers to understand whether to enter or not to enter certain market, or to outsource certain activities or product, or how to closely monitor and upgrade customer base. Now, for example, if I talk about upgrading the customer base, a company decides to digitize their physical data files to allow for quicker access to companies information, like CRM, that is one of the software every financial institutions are using, that is CRM in banking and insurance industries has enabled in updating and upgrading the information of the customers, so that in near future they can actually use these kind of information. Another example is the iPhone. Now iPhone is upgrading their phone regularly. So, after every year they are coming up with a better technology, with a better model of the phone. So, that means they have to consider what are the technological factor, what are the technological changes that are being happening in the industry. Another factor is the environmental factor. Now, environmental factor is something which has come to the forefront only recently because of scarcity of raw material and the natural resources faced by various industries. An environmental factor concerns the ecological impact on business. As how weather extremes become more common, businesses need to plan how to adapt to these kind of changes. The key environmental factors include the weather conditions of particular country or where the business have to operate, the temperature, the climatic change, increase in pollutions, availability of the natural resources, and so on. So, if I talk about the availability of natural resources, mostly fish industry is set up near the coastlines basically. Now, what kind of effect the environment is having on this kind of industry, it is quite important for fish industry to go through what could be the possibilities in near future and how environment could actually affect this kind of industry. Again, there is increase in natural disasters like tsunami, tornadoes, floods, etc. These are also some of the environmental factors that are directly or indirectly affecting each and every industry. Many government restrictions and NGO interventions have led business to strictly consider the environmental protection. Now, because with certain laws, with scarcity of raw material, as we have discussed earlier, the natural resources, government has taken strict measures. Many NGOs are coming up with various projects and interventions so that the environmental could be protected from various pollutions that is caused by various industries. Additionally, there is increasing importance for businesses to be environmentally friendly with their operations, as evidenced by the rise of the corporate sustainability responsibility, that is the CSR initiatives. For example, of CSR initiatives include the carbon footprint reduction efforts and transitions into renewable material and energy sources. And many industries have been set up where many organizations, educational institutions, etc., they are coming up with the solar energy. They are using solar energy so that the carbon footprints can be reduced. Another example could be an agricultural company that has to adjust its harvest forecast due to unexpectedly dry seasonal conditions that will prevent the crop growth. So, another example we could take is the soil free farming, the Israel farming technology. They have come up with the technology where they are not using much of soil, rather they are forming water beds to farm, to cultivate so many vegetables and other green products, so that they can they can be used by the small industry, small farmers with a small piece of land, so that they can do the farming. So, these are the environmental factors that are quite important for any business to understand. Another aspect is the legal environment. Now, there is often uncertainty regarding the difference between political and legal factors in the context of the PESTLE analysis. Legal factors pertain to any legal force that defines what a business can or cannot do. Legal factors have to do with all legislative and procedural components in an economy. Also, this takes into account certain standards that your business might have to meet in order to start production or promotion of any of the product or services they are into. So, political factor basically involves a relationship between the business and the government. So, most of the time it is being confused. So, political and legal factors are the intersect with the governmental bodies, introduce legislators and policies that actually affect how the business is supposed to be operated. Now, whenever a company is entering into the foreign market, it is quite important for them to understand these legal environment, what kind of legalities they have to cope up with, to what kind of legal framework the country they wanted to operate in they have, so that they can actually adjust their business accordingly. So, legal factors include the industry regulations. Every country has its own industry regulation. Every business has its own industry regulations. There are amendments in industry regulations most of the time. Licenses and permits to do certain type of business, like food industry. We need that kind of license if we want to operate in, like, we have to open up a restaurant, and even the small eateries nowadays, they have to take certain kind of licenses. Then we have a labor laws or employees protection laws, etc. So, these are the legal factors. Now, I'll just take an example of the legal factor. A restaurant may be forced to shut down after not meeting safety standards set out in the state law or by the country where we are operating. So, that's all for the PESTLE analysis. Thank you so much, and for the next lecture we will be coming up with the 5 force model and the SWOT analysis for this. Thank you so much.